So we have a question on the board we want to profile solution to. And the question says, for what values of x is the fraction equals 0? And if you will recall very well, we talked about fractions and when they become 0 and when they become undefined. And we said clearly that any fraction is equal to 0 if the numerator is 0. So if that be the case, it means that this fraction will be equal to 0 if this numerator is 0. Therefore, that will give us s squared minus x minus 6 is equal to 0. And this is now a quadratic equation because the highest power of the unknown is 2. So we can solve the equation quadratically. And there are various ways we can solve quadratic equation, but I want to use factorization method. To solve quadratic equation using factorization method, you first of all find the product of the first and the last term. We have the first term, the second term, and the last term. Find the product, multiply the first and the last term. And when I do that, I have minus 6s squared. When you multiply s squared and minus 6, it gives you minus 6s squared. Find two factors. Find two things. Now, when you multiply them, they give you minus 6s squared. But when you add them, they give you the one half the middle. Of course, 3 comes to mind, 2 comes to mind, and 3 comes to mind. X and x. So when I multiply 2x and 3x, I'm going to have 6s squared, not minus 6s squared. So one of them, if what I'm looking for is a negative value, it means that one of them must be negative and one of them must be positive. Because if you can recall the multiplication of sign, you can only have a negative sign when one of the signs is positive and one is negative. If both of them are positive, it will give you a positive result. If both of them are negative, it will also give you a positive result. So one must be negative, one must be positive. So we think of minus 2x plus 3x. We can also think of 2x and minus 3x. So we consider these two options. Apologies. So these two options will give us minus 6s squared, but which among them will give us minus x when we add? When you add minus 2 and 3, it gives you 1, not minus 1. But when you add 2 and minus 3, it gives you minus 1. So we are going with these two options. This is what we need. So replace the middle term with these two terms. And when we do that, we have s squared plus, because this is the same as plus 2x, then minus 3x, then minus 6 is equal to 0. So what we've done is to replace the middle term with these two terms we've gotten. Of course, we've not changed anything, because when you subtract 3x from 2x, you're going to have minus x. So the equation is still the same thing. But the essence is to group them in pairs. So that we can factorize. So I have a pair here, I have another pair here. So from the first pair, the common thing in these two expressions is x. So I can bring out x, I can factorize x out. When I bring out x from s squared, I have only one x left. Plus, when I factorize x from 2x, I've removed the x, you divide with x, you have 2 left. All right? So this is what we have from here. So from this expression, the common thing there is minus 3. Minus 3 is common here, minus 3 is common here. So that's the highest common factor. We can bring minus 3 out. So this minus 3 divide with this. So when you bring it out, divide this with minus 3, you have x left. Then divide this expression with minus 3, you have plus 2 left. Because minus divide minus gives you 4. It gives you plus. And then 3 divides 6 gives you 2. And this is the same thing as 0. Please note, whenever you factorize a quadratic equation, this expression must be the same thing, s plus 2, s plus 2. If they're not the same, that means you've made a mistake somewhere. So you must go back to find out where the error is coming from. So we have this right now. So we can continue the solution, pick out the ones outside the bracket, that is x minus 3, the ones outside, and pick one of those that are the same, s plus 2. And this is the same thing as 0. I do hope you remember that in mathematics, bracket means multiplication. So the meaning of this equation is that we are multiplying this term with this term, and the result is 0. I can tell you for sure that the only way you can multiply two expressions and you get 0 is if one of them or both of them is the same as 0. If this is not 0 and this is not 0, you can't multiply them and have 0. One of them must be 0 or both of them must be 0. If that be the case, it means that either x minus 3 is equal to 0 or s plus 2 is equal to 0. For these two multiplications to give us 0, this is 0 or this is 0. So from here we have a linear equation, we can solve for x, we can solve for x. From here, x becomes equal to minus 3 crosses equal sign is changed to plus 3. X becomes 3. Or plus 2 crosses equal sign is changed to minus 2. X becomes minus 2. So these are the values of x for this fraction to be equal to 0. X must be 3 or x must be minus 2. Because when that happens, the numerator becomes 0. And when the numerator becomes 0, the entire fraction becomes what? 0. We can always check whether we are right or wrong. So we can replace s with 3. When you do that, you have 3 squared. And 3 squared is 9. So 9 minus 3, remember we are replacing x with 3. So 9 minus 3 is 6. And 6 minus 6 is 0. So when we replace x with 3, this numerator becomes 0. And when the numerator becomes 0, the entire fraction becomes 0. We can also replace s with minus 2. When you replace x with minus 2, you have minus 2 squared, which is minus 2 times minus 2, that is 4. Then when you replace with minus 2, you have minus 2, which is plus 2. So 4 plus 2 is 6. And 6 minus 6 is 0. So this becomes 0. The entire fraction becomes what? 0. So for this fraction to be 0, s must be 3 or x must be minus 2. You're welcome. Kindly share my video and invite your friends to follow my pages for more content.